Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, heading into the month of March. Happy third month of the year. This is the month in which daylight savings happens to us. This is the one where we lose the hour.
Spring
so
ahead,
get pumped for that.
fall back.
Spring ahead, fall back. We're not going to be doing that during this, so you don't have to worry about losing an hour suddenly. I think is it like next weekend or is it like a couple weekends out? I actually don't even know.
It's in the teens. It's one of the teens.
It's in the teens. Okay, something to be mindful of, I guess. But yeah, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about other stuff. I am Illeagle 86. I am here as usual with Techtic and Nerdbomber, who is waiting silently in the wings somewhere. Oh, she's no longer silent. She's right there. We're loosey-goosey. We're fully lubricated from a secret segment recording immediately prior to this. So hint, hint, if you want to hear us really, start flexing the pipes and get things loose before the main, you can head over to patreon.com, subscribe to our channel there, give us some support, and you can hear us talk about Love is Blind, because we all finished Love is Blind, and purportedly, we learned whether love was blind or not, or at least so it would seem. So we're not talking about that here. We're going to be talking about Elden Ring because that just dropped finally. We've been talking about that. I think we talked about that last year. This is the game that George R.R. Martin helped write. We're going to be talking about Starlink and in particular how it relates to the current ongoing situation in Ukraine. And we are also going to be talking about Pokemon because we got the big announcement of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Two very similar sounding colors. Announced for late 2022, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about the starters. They revealed the 3 starters to us. To me, there is a clear choice of starter based on my zero Pokemon knowledge, but we'll get to that later. We're going to start here with Elden Ring. So Elden Ring has been released. It's been in the works for a while. A role-playing game developed by From Software and published by Bandai Namco. Came out on the 25th, so this past Friday. Guys, as we live and breathe right now, it's among the highest reviewed games of all time. Hearing nothing but good things about it. So I'm on the Wikipedia page, full disclosure. I'm going to read the premise to you because I don't think we did that. I don't know if we even had the premise when we first talked about this game last year. But let me read this to you. You tell me what this sounds like. Elden Ring takes place in the realm of the lands between, sometime after the destruction of the titular Elden Ring and the scattering of its shards, the Great Runes. Once graced by the ring and the Erd Tree, which symbolizes its presence, the realm is now ruled over by the demigod offspring of Queen Marika the Eternal, each possessing a shard of the ring that corrupts and taints them with power. It might be Queen Marika, I don't know. As tarnished, exiles from the lands between who lost the ring's grace and then are summoned back after the shattering, players must traverse the realm to ultimately find all the great runes, restore the Elden Ring, and become the Elden Lord. Now, the reason I wanted to read that, I'm about to dunk on this game.
That's going to be a hot take. Lots of people are very, very, very enthused about this game.
They're very into it. I don't think I'm a particularly good writer. I don't think I'm even particularly creative. This sounds like something that I would have written for like a school assignment in like the 6th grade. It also sounds like a ripoff of The Lord of the Rings, obviously, but I feel like that part kind of goes without saying.
I feel like, though...
It's not as important as the gameplay.
With the writing team at the helm, I've heard that there's a lot of good lore. So to be clear to anybody listening, the 3 of us have not played this game, and I don't think I ever will. But I've heard that this has pretty solid lore and writing. I think the overarching premise does sound a lot like a Lord of the Rings knockoff, but I'm sure when you dig further past like the descriptive blurb, in the game, there's got to be a lot more lore than that.
Yeah, you're reading the back of a book and saying, oh, this book is trash. You got to really turn those pages before you can make such a bold claim.
I guess it's also not exactly like The Lord of the Rings in the fact that in this one, the ring starts off destroyed. Which is like, in Lord of the Rings, they spend the whole time trying to destroy it. Here, it's already destroyed to start with. So if anything, it's Lord of the Rings in reverse. This game's been in development. It was announced in 2019 at E3. From Software, of course, is responsible for Bloodborne and the Dark Souls series. Both of which, yeah, I'm with you, Nerdbomber, on this one. I don't think I'll ever play this game. The RPG heaviness and also, like, I'm sure the difficulty, I'm not sure if it's as difficult as, like, I've heard that Bloodborne and Dark Souls are. But It doesn't appeal to me at all. I can see myself getting invested in the lore if it is indeed more than the premise is promising. Like you said, it probably is. But nonetheless, regardless of our opinion, I think it is funny that we're all like, hey, this game came out, it's getting really good reviews. By the way, we're never going to play it. Like, it's kind of a weird way to.
Hey, whoa! Don't you speak for Techtic?
Okay, so you're going in on this?
Hey, don't you speak for Techtic either? So
why don't let's allow Techtic to speak for Techtic? How about that?
So the biggest draw for me in any game is really the customizable option. That's why I'm drawn to games like Pokemon, because I can customize my own party and as such customize my experience. And one of the biggest things that I've been following with this game is the character customization option and how wild it is. I mean, if you want a character to look like you can have a character look like you. If you want your character to look like John Travolta, you can look like John Travolta. It is just vast. And really, you can get wild with it. You can get weird with it. And so that, for me, is a big driving point to be into it. I was very into Skyrim, for example, and I thought those customization options were to be desired. And so this, to me, as long as I can find the time sink to do something, is something I would absolutely play so long as it falls in my lap and I have the time to play it.
So I came prepared with a few discussion points for this, since none of us have played this. One of the things you touched on, Techtic, was that it's an exceptionally long game. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but I've heard that there's tens, if not hundreds of hours of gameplay here. It's a vast open world, so I think different from Dark Souls, which again, I didn't play because that sort of stuff frustrates me. But you have the option where if you get stuck, you can just pivot because it's an open world. You can explore different avenues. You can approach bosses at different times. People I've heard have been stumbling across bosses. There's just a lot to unpack in this game. Does that turn you on or turn you off when a game is that long?
As someone who has really been okay with never finishing games, this is something that I will pick up, get my dues out of it, enjoy it, not finish, and go on to the next thing.
For me, it's a turnoff. So you probably expected me to say that. For me, the ideal length of a game is probably 8 hours. Mm-hmm. Campaign-wise, I would say between.
So not being able to finish it is something that just doesn't sit well with you?
No. Not at all. I like the idea of what you said of I like the idea of having an open world in which you find bosses too early and go like, whoa, I'm going to come back to that. Because then it you can sidestep it and it gives you something to work toward and kind of gauge like, okay, am I strong enough to go do this now?
I think that's realistic, by the way.
And I think it's very interesting. But it does, the byproduct of that is it makes the game a lot longer.
That's why I liked Pokemon Legends of Arceus, because, you have a level 6 Cyndaquil, right? And there is nothing that says that you will not come into contact with a level 40 Snorlax right off the bat. It's realistic. Well, those kind of things are real. Like, if it's this vast open world, there's nothing that says that you won't come into contact with a level 100 dragon. It makes sense.
And the satisfaction you get as a player from finding a boss and getting just absolutely smacked by it, and then coming back later and beating it with any sort of ease, that's where the satisfaction comes from playing games like this. So I think that's an important element, and it does make it longer, but I think that from my understanding is that Dark Souls is a fairly linear experience. So you don't really get a whole lot of opportunity for that. And I think that's probably a black mark on its record. This game, I mean, I'm looking here. I know, Nerdbomber, you might have some more discussion points, but before we get into those, 10 out of 10 on IGN, 10 out of 10 on GameSpot. Games Radar gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Destructoid, 10 out of 10. Game Informer, 10 out of 10. I mean, across the board, it's just sterling reviews. The PS5 version has a 97 on Metacritic. It's had 900,000 viewers on Twitch within the 24 hours of its first 24 hours of its release, which makes it the third largest debut after Lost Ark and Cyberpunk 2077, which we all know how that one went. So regardless of our feelings on it, this is an enormous deal. So I'm sure it's really good. I'm willing to believe all of those people. I don't know if I'm going to play it because it might not be my cup of tea, but it's the hot thing right now.
So that's kind of my other kind of two-pronged question. So you said it's not really a cup of tea. I don't think it's mine either. I appreciate difficulty in games, but what I've found from a lot of the From Software games and just hearing about them, watching other people play, is they're kind of designed to test you. And there's no difficulty sliders. If you face a really difficult portion, you can easily, well, in this game, probably not so much because it's open world, but you can bash your head against the same challenge over and over and it won't get any easier. There's no way for you to kind of bypass it. There's no difficulty sliders or accessibility options for ease. Does that turn you off of a game? And then kind of the second prong of that question is, with these kind of crazy good reviews, this obviously not only does this put this in like Game of the Year contender categories, but like you only get these kind of review scores when you have a game that kind of really advances the medium and is a pivotal tentpole for either a console generation or just gaming in general. I think the last time we saw a game like this was either God of War or Breath of the Wild. But the difference with this game is that, it's not super accessible. Difficulty level is very high. Barrier to entry, because it's not everyone's cup of tea, very high. Can it be considered a gaming tentpole if it isn't accessible to everybody?
Okay. The answer to the first question is yes, it turns me off to have bash your head against the wall moments. And then like actually a recent experience for me with that, I think it was last Christmas, I got the Super Mario 3D All-Stars and Mario Sunshine. I had to stop. I was getting too frustrated because I hit a point where I couldn't get any stars, any shine spurs, whatever they're called. And I was like, this isn't worth it for me. So for me, that's definitely a drawback. To your second question, again, sight unseen, I haven't played any of this. I haven't even seen a whole lot of footage on it. I'm not sure it's doing a whole lot of new things. I imagine the reviews are more coming from a place of this is familiar territory, fantasy open world. You're looking at Elder Scrolls kind of stuff here. But I think it's probably doing it at such a high execution level that I'm not sure I would characterize it as a tentpole so much as I would characterize it as something that maybe revitalizes a genre or just kind of cements a genre as being really important. And like we've kind of known this genre was important to begin with, but it's a success story in making a certain genre as good as it can possibly be. But to me, Breath of the Wild felt a lot more new than this.
Yeah, I agree with you on the second point that it doesn't really seem that new of breakthrough things. But on your first point about not having a difficulty setting being a deterrent, I go back to Metroid Dread, right? There's something so satisfying about the grind of you died, you got it. And that to me is rewarding. And the fact that this game offers that, I think is actually a plus as opposed to a negative.
There's a sweet spot. I don't want it to be easy. To me, Metroid Dread did not fall into the sweet spot. Metroid Dread, and I think we talked about this. I think if I encounter a boss, I do not want to beat a boss on the first try, but I don't want to have to take 20 tries. The ideal number for me is probably somewhere between 5 and 10. I don't think, and maybe even that's a little bit much. Maybe it's actually like 3. I don't want it to be too hard. I don't want it to be too easy. And that's a very hard mark for games to hit, especially games like this and games with this scope. So I don't hold it against Elden Ring to not do that. But when games offer that capability, I appreciate it. I guess is kind of where I'm at with it.
I find the entire discussion around, game difficulty is just super interesting to me because I do get with Dark Souls and Elden Ring, the difficulty is part of From Software's vision. People who are From Software purists, they love it. They don't think that there should be difficulty sliders or anything like that. But you also have to wonder from just a marketing and business perspective. There's a pure standard that you see your game at, a pure difficulty standard. But I don't know what the, downside of having a difficulty level selection is. I guess I just don't see how getting your game in the hands of more people is a bad thing. But
I think they want their games to be seen by players as points of pride. To say that I beat Bloodborne or I beat Dark Souls, it's a legitimate accomplishment because anyone who's played it knows how hard it is. And there's no way to change how hard it is. So there's kind of this unified perspective on it. I imagine that's maybe what it is.
I suppose that's fair. But back in the day, and this is going to make me sound old, back in the day, when I had Xbox achievements on the Xbox 360, if you played on hard mode, you got a special achievement. Why not just do that? I don't know why I had to do that special voice for that, but it felt like I had to.
That was your back in the day voice.
I think what you said about kind of this From Software being I don't know if you use the word purists, but I think it might be purists or purism in the sense that older games, going back to, we're talking Super Nintendo and stuff, they were really hard. I think on balance, they were harder than games today are.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think,
and they didn't have difficulty settings. You played Pac-Man and it was just Pac-Man.
Right. And I think there's certainly a large sect of gamers today, and game development studios who are like, we want, like, make games hard again. That's probably how a lot of people feel. I don't think I personally feel that way because I like winning. I'm a simple man. I like winning. I like beating things. I don't like not beating things. There's a level of satisfaction. I don't deny Techtic. There's a level of satisfaction that comes from trying very hard to beat something relative to not trying very hard and still beating it. But yeah, that sweet spot is very hard to hit. It's a very hard mark to hit, and I acknowledge that. But I don't know how I feel about it. Like I remember when I heard about like Dark Souls being as hard as it was, I was like, why would anyone put themselves through that? And then it became like super popular. So like I think I may be on the wrong side of this. In fact, I probably am. But that's how I feel. I don't know. Maybe now George R.R. Martin can get back to finishing Game of Thrones, but let's be honest, probably not.
I feel like he goes out of his way to find other projects that aren't Game of Thrones, or at least finishing the book. Because like he's still involved in like the Game of Thrones prequels, I think.
He's like me with tinkering projects.
Very true.
I mean, at this point, are we ready to say that it's not going to happen? I think I'm ready to just declare that he's not going to do it. He probably has, at this point, he probably has no intention of doing it, and he's laughing at all of us. That's my honest guess. He's laughing at all of us speculating that, oh, I'm going to do this. No, you're not going to do it. There's no way. I should start spreading the word that he's never going to finish it. People need to just stop asking about it.
I honestly wonder, and this is super speculative, but like I wonder if he got to a point where he maybe wrote himself into a corner and he's just like, I don't know how to finish this, but he's still getting money.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, okay, well, this works.
I think if anything, that's probable. I mean, writing is hard. Especially when you're writing something of that magnitude with that many characters, like it's probably very easy to kind of get yourself into like a stalemate position where you can't really get out of it in any particular way. So yeah, if you're him, like you said, it's just like, well, I got all my money, I guess I'm done. And like people don't need to know. Like, I don't know if there's any benefit to him telling the world like, yeah, I can't finish it. You know, that's not the best look. So George, if you're out there, if you're listening, we know you're a fan of the podcast. Let me know what you're planning. I won't tell anybody. I promise. We'll see if that.
Honestly,
sticks.
if I was him, I would just do a competition. The winner gets to write the book, and then he looks like a good guy, and he gets the fan service.
That's an interesting idea.
Honestly, yeah. Who's the guy who pumps out like 18,000 books a year?
John Grisham.
Is it?
I think it's John Grisham or Robert Patterson. One of those guys.
I was thinking Robert Patterson, but both of them do. Like, honestly, have someone ghostwrite at this point. Launch somebody's career. You know, honestly, find someone who's
that would be cool.
Written like fan stuff and just catapult their career. Have them ghostwrite with you, and then bam, you look like a great guy.
I'm sure there's probably a lot of fans. And not for that matter, a decent number of fans who have the wherewithal and the talent to like go to George R. R. Martin and say like, look, let me write it and you can put your name on it. My name doesn't have to be on it. And then it'll just be done and we'll all be happy. You know, like,
well, there's probably like fan fiction up the wazoo that have already finished the series.
I'm sure there is. Yeah, not probably, definitely.
Which, by the way, anything you love, there's fan fiction of, and please check it out because the community is amazing. Just side note.
Yeah. My fiance is really into the whole fan fiction thing, and I know there's just a huge amount of it out there. So, George, maybe just go bind all that up and it's call yours. I don't know. That's illegal, but maybe give it a shot. It's better than not doing anything.
Illeagle 86.
I think some people would argue that. Yeah, it's my name. So, we're going to transition here to talking about Ukraine because, you know, this has happened. I believe this started. It's been going on for a while, kind of, but the active military conflict that's ongoing right now started, I believe, the day after our last episode released. So at this point, we're 5-6 days into this. No, it feels like that, but it's only 3-4 days into this. And we do have a piece of news about it, or that relates to it, about Starlink that we'll get to in a second. But before we do that, I feel like we should take a minute and I don't know that we have listeners in the Ukraine. I honestly have no idea, but in case we do, and even if we don't, you know, obviously our thoughts are with everyone who's been affected by this. If you're there, it's probably hard for you to be listening to the podcast. I'm probably talking to nobody, but it's been a crazy few days. It's very hard in the context and in the midst of everything else that we have going on as a world right now. To kind of toss this on top of the pile is, well, it's a big thing to toss, right? So Elon Musk is stepping in, as he often does in times of crisis, I feel like. I think it's more of a PR move for him, but either way, we've heard about Starlink. I think we've talked about Starlink on the podcast before. I would imagine we have. This is a satellite network, courtesy of SpaceX, that is designed to, I guess, bring large-scale broadband internet to places. And he has positioned these satellites over the Ukraine, or I guess maybe not over the Ukraine, but wherever they need to be so that they bring internet service to the Ukraine to replace services destroyed by the ongoing attack. So Starlink service is now active. More terminals, he says, are en route. He tweeted this on Saturday. And yeah, I mean, this is objectively a good thing, right? We're seeing a lot, you know, obviously the primary rebuttal to a lot of this, you know, from outside of the Ukraine is sanction based, right? It's, you know, it's things from various governments removing Russia's ability to use SWIFT, which is like, I guess, the world's leading payment system, which I've somehow never heard of until now. But it's other things too that not even on a government scale, but I know like bars are not serving Russian vodkas. And like, I guess the Ukrainian vice prime minister asked Tim Cook to remove Russian apps from the Apple Store, which I don't know how many of those there are on the Apple Store, but
probably a decent amount.
We're seeing
also
this.
Russian companies can't profit on Facebook ads. There's a ton.
So we're seeing this kind of global collective movement towards, I don't know, like unifying with a goal of kind of screwing Russia over without actively attacking them, which I have my doubts about how effective that will be. But nonetheless, it's cool to see the unity. And I'm sure as Ukrainians, I'm sure they look at that and say that's good. But I have a very hard time wrapping my head around if like people living there right now.
I could not imagine.
I mean, can you imagine that? I can't even imagine that. Just like, I mean, are people getting up and going to work? I can't imagine. Like in Kyiv, I can't imagine so. But I don't know. To an extent, you probably have to in certain cases. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this. But I think the Starlink thing is certainly cool. I don't know, like, how far out was Starlink supposed to be anyways? Like, it wasn't working anywhere. I'm not sure where it's supposed to be working. But apparently it was like close enough to working that they just were like, all right, switch it on, send it over to Ukraine.
See, why I wanted to talk about this story is, one, yes, all of these companies are helping out, but on the bigger picture, we've kind of, you know, everyone's sort of picking a side with regards to their own politics, and we've lost this sense of unity as humans, as people. And this is just a small glimmer of, hey, you know, if we get our stuff together, we can help, and we can do something. All of these corporations just kind of cashing a check are now actually helping instead of just raking in billions. And yeah, right. It's not stopping the horrors that are happening, but it's these little acts that are having impacts and being helpful. And that's the world that I always thought we'd actually live in, instead of this one that we've been in. But
the current world. Yeah, right. It's definitely good to see. I think it's going to continue. This is not going to be the last thing we're going to hear about a company saying, hey, we're going to do we're going to make this large gesture, you know, I guess in response to, I can't imagine in this day and age, especially considering things like nukes, but even not considering those, like invading another country, like you have to know that's wrong, right? It's very hard for me to fathom, like, I hope barring something like, and however you feel about like previous wars in our country's history, like when we went to war with Iraq, there was a very clear thing we could point to as to why, right? And you know, that there were certain things that turned out to be incorrect. Obviously, we know all of that, but like it was kind of like 9/11 happened, then a war happened, right? Very clear kind of trajectory. With this, it's more so we're going to be aggressors for being aggressors' sake. And I can't imagine doing that and thinking that you're right and thinking that the rest of the world isn't going to jump down your throat for it. You know, like it's very strange to me. I have a hard time fathoming that. But it's where we are. At
least for America, we go back to the World War II way of knowing who the bad guy is. You know, we start making Rocky movies where the Russian is the bad guy, and we stop hating your neighbor for having different political beliefs than you. We're united, like your neighbor. Hate the Russians.
Even just like, I don't know. It's just watching a lot of the videos. It's pretty horrific, everything that's going over there, and just even seeing people who are I don't even know how many miles around the Earth is, so I don't know if saying millions of miles away is legit, but many miles away.
It's definitely not millions.
But like
it's thousands, I would
theoretically say. Millions of miles away around the world. You know, watching everybody come together and support the people of Ukraine. And I mean, there's so many ways to donate and help, like UNICEF and a bunch of organizations are putting together care packages and resources for the people of Ukraine. And it is
Right.
nice, like you said, Techtic, to just see the world united to help people.
And I do want to say this because it's absolutely tone deaf. If you're thinking about making a meme, just don't.
Yeah, I was gonna get to this too. Like it's very like the previous wars that we've been a part of. Like I think they all, for the most part, happened or at least started before the social media age really became what it is now, right? And like this Ukrainian conflict, we are seeing it unfold via like TikToks, which is just like it's whether it's good or bad. You know, I think there's certainly parts of it that are bad, especially in terms of like misinformation, but there's other parts of it that are good because it does give you a stronger sense of what's going on there than maybe we would otherwise have, or we would have had 15 years ago. So it's this like touch point moment. It's very surreal to like.
It's also super dystopian. Yeah, you're seeing like Elden Ring
it's
and
jarring.
then war videos in the same like breath. It's kind of jarring.
Twitter has a way of just kind of blending that all together into like this crazy soup that is, yeah, definitely like there's like this disassociative quality to it that's definitely bad. But it's like, you know, we're hearing things about like, and did they debunk the Ghost of Kiev? I think they've actually.
They did, yeah. I think that was actually video game footage. I might be wrong.
But that was
Someone
the thing that
fact-check
was
me.
like going. That was something that was going around on like day 2. And I just remember thinking like, okay, this is trending on Twitter right now. And it's like, this guy's shooting planes out of the sky and like planes are being shot out of the sky. And it's like a very serious thing. And like, not that it was being treated like a meme, but it went viral. And that's just like a very weird thing. It's kind of this moment where you look back, you take a step back and think, wow, as a society, this is where we are, and like good or bad or a mix of the two, it's just like
We're horribly
it's very interesting.
desensitized.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is desensitizing. It's like I said, it's disassociating. It's just, and it's still going on. And yeah, I guess a good point to leave this is, you know, it's good that companies are doing things like you know, Elon Musk, however you feel about him and what his companies, like what they're doing here is good, and hopefully more companies step up to do that. And in the meantime, if you're thinking about making a meme, probably don't do it. I agree, Techtic, with that piece of advice. That's a pre-tech tip piece of Techtic advice that isn't actually a dad joke. So that also feels like a milestone. So with that in mind, we're going to move back to some lighter fare, talk about Pokemon in the second half of the show. But before we do, we are going to take a quick break, and we are going to shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. He was here with us last week. We had a great conversation, both on the air and off the air, honestly. The off the air, there's a lot of off the air content you guys don't see or hear. We're just kind of shooting the breeze with Stephen, having a great time, talking to him about various things. He had a great time being here, I think, and I hope, and we had a great time having him. It's one of the benefits he receives as a producer of the show. He supports us on Patreon at our highest level, which is the night level. As a result, he gets this shout out. He gets weekly input into the game segment. He gets, of course, access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and he gets the occasional guest spot, which he did last week. There's also a Squire level of support, which gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and there is the page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. This previous month's secret segment was about Love is Blind, which I mentioned before, and the vlog was a Techtic special that I actually don't know the details of, so I can't really tease that too hard, but I'm sure it was enjoyable. So you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast if you want to get access to any of that content. Hit us up there. We appreciate any support, and you can join a great community and hang out with Steven and with us. So head over there to check the details out. And in the meantime, thanks again to Steven. We'll take a short break now and come back to talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We don't have to do anything. We can just cut back in. Okay, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. These were announced last week, in which they announced a number of in-game updates for other existing games, but also announced these 2 flagship games for late 2022. I feel like the main point of reference here that we need to talk about is the 3 starters and why Quaxley is the clear choice.
Really?
Wow,
that's my opinion. But look, I don't know anything about Pokemon. Okay, this is based
This
purely
seems like
on
we're all
looking
going to
at
have a different
pictures.
starter.
Looking at pictures of these 3 starters, I will say the red lizard dude, is that, how do you pronounce it? Fuecoco?
Fuecoco.
He's all right. To me, the green cat is nothing. I don't know. I think the green cat has the best name if I remember correctly, but Quaxley is also a really, really good name. Yeah,
It's
the cat is named
Sprigatito.
Sprigatito, which is a good name. But I mean, this toupee thing that the duck is wearing. I mean, give me a break. Like, come on. That's
he's
to me.
Donald Duck. He's Donald Duck.
Having absolutely no information about Pokemon at large, and also especially about this game, that would be my choice. I don't know. For me, that's. But it sounds like Techtic. Are you a Sprigatito person, and is Nerdbomber a Fuecoco person?
He's trying to bully
I
me
am
here.
a Fuecoco.
No, he's trying to bully me. So I love Fuecoco. I think his little single front tooth is super cute, and I like that he's either an apple or
He's
a
a chili
pepper.
He's a chili pepper.
Jury is out, but I love him, and he's like, no, you can't have him as your starter, and I'm really sad.
Okay, so
Oh right, because you guys have to share, right? You're sharing games,
and
so you
she
can't
gets
both
the
have same
fire
starter.
almost every single time. It's my turn to get the fire. It's my turn.
I saw you on Twitter putting your foot down. It was a sight to behold. I didn't want to get involved. I still don't. But
Also,
I wish you guys all the best.
So
working
I'm
through your
very
issues.
intimately invested into this whole genre as a whole, because so it appears that they're taking inspiration from Mexican culture, and that's why
Or Spanish, could be either.
no, I think it's Mexican, and I have a couple theories, and that's why Fuecoco is a chili pepper. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's this TikTok person that I follow. I'm going to give him a shout out because he does great work. It's Condude El Castillo. And he makes all Mexican style fan made Pokemon, and they're awesome. And there is a chili pepper one that he made that has the same sort of body shape as Fuecoco. And so one, I hope that he worked with them, because his art is absolutely fantastic, and I hope we see some of his work in the game. And two, that said, a lot of where his inspiration comes from is sort of like Aztec culture and things like that. And so I think that Sprigatito is also going to be this cool Aztec statue cat thing that's going to look awesome. Fuecoco is going to be this cool chili pepper dragon, and Quaxley is going to be Donald Duck.
But if you're trying to convince me that I need to be the leaf cat, let me just read you Fuecoco's description.
Yeah.
This laid-back,
okay.
fire-crock Pokemon that does things at its own pace, and I'm sorry, if that does not describe me to a T, I am a sloth, and this is my spirit Pokemon.
I don't know if I'm going to push back on that. I don't know. Okay, doing things at your own pace, I get that. I don't know if I would describe you as laid back.
Yeah, you're not laid back. I'm more laid back than you.
I think Techtic's more laid back than you. I'm going to throw some weight into Techtic's corner on that. I'm obviously going to let you guys. And now, granted, I don't think you're capricious and attention seeking, which is what the Sprigatito's that's what Sprigatito's description is. Quaxley, by the way, he's earnest and tidy. Which
That's not me
you know who's
either.
earnest and tidy? No, that's me. I'm both earnest and tidy. Quaxley may be my spirit animal. That may be where we're going with this. I may actually play Pokemon because of this.
Really?
Probably not, but in fact, definitely not. But
So-
it's close as I'll ever come.
This is something that's interesting now. So, kind of like in the spirit of Legends of Arceus, this Pokemon game is going to be the first quote-unquote mainline generation game that is going to be completely open world. They announced that.
And why wouldn't they, right? Because with the success of Legend of Arceus and the feedback that they got on the gameplay, to me, that seems like that's going to be their formula moving forward, unless they do remakes.
So now, Illeagle, does that change anything for you? Are you still kind of against the turn-based battle, or like what does that do for your interest in?
You can play the
Pokemon?
entire Pokemon Legends of Arceus, by the way, and never do a turn-based battle ever in the whole game.
So
Well, a couple boss battles, but really never.
the answer is yes. I'm still against it. Like I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but like I don't think Pokemon is ever going to appeal to me. The formula changes they're making are certainly bringing me closer to being interested, but still not nearly close enough. Is I think where I currently land on it, and I think it is like the turn-based element is never going to go away. They can't fully take that away. I hear what you're saying about Arceus or Arceus, or however you pronounce it, but I'm sure that is the turn-based element is still baked in and will remain baked in for the duration of the franchise, which will probably be literally hundreds of years. So, for me, I think I'm still out. But boy, Quaxley, he puts me on the verge in a lot of ways. So shout out to him and his toupee. That's a toupee, right? The
It looks
hairpiece.
like it, yeah.
It's got it. It's got to be. Stay tuned for which one of you gets Fuecoco. I assume you're going to be tweeting about that. You're going to have to go to like couples counseling.
Yeah.
It's couples counseling. I think that's where we are with this. So I'm sure the people will want to know. So I guess keep us updated.
We're not going to do a Twitter poll for this for you guys to decide our fate, because this is
too
close.
It's too important.
So now this is more aimed at Techtic, I guess, because you're not really big into Pokemon Illeagle. But in the past year, in the Pokemon universe, we've gotten Legends of Arceus and, the remakes.
Brilliant Diamond and Shining
Thank
Shining
you.
Pearl.
Yeah, I always mix them up. I always do the reverse, and I didn't want to sound like a fool. So thank you. We got that game as well. And I mean, we're still getting kind of updates for Sword and Shield. Are you surprised that we're already getting a mainline game this soon off the heels of Legends of Arceus?
I am. I really am. I thought they were going to milk Diamond and Pearl for everything that it was worth. I wasn't going to buy that one. I was never into Diamond and Pearl as a whole, but I guess I was surprised. And honestly, with that being said, maybe I'm not the minority. Maybe they fully were expecting the same kind of numbers of people that bought Diamond and Pearl to buy it again, and it really not to be this big boom. And so it's possible that they were anticipating that and threw this out, because now I'm back in, baby. Like this game I am buying.
But I mean, this is scheduled to come out, they said, late 2022.
That's this year.
Yeah, so it obviously couldn't be something that they just slapped together. This is going to be the first open world mainline game. So it has to have been in the works for a while. So for me, I was just surprised that they didn't have a little bit more time between Legends of Arceus to kind of get a feel for how that was received, because they did have some open world sections in Sword and Shield, that whole like wild area. But really, Legends of Arceus was such a big departure. I'm just shocked that they didn't wait to see how that would get received and panned out.
Here's the other thing. I don't think they're releasing another 150 Pokemon. I think it's Gen 9 starters, and maybe you'll get a couple new ones sprinkled in. And I'm telling you, that definitely whittles down the creation time cost, we'll call it.
Yeah, but they're going to still have to make all of these open world environments.
They've already done it with Legends of Arceus. It's basically a game engine at this point.
I suppose. But yeah, that's coming out at the end of this year. So soon.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that, but I have nothing really to add.
I have something to add about the Pokemon Presents in general. There were a bunch of other announcements, a lot of mobile stuff, but the one thing that I am really excited about is the updates to the Legends of Arceus game. And what that includes is new missions, as well as many, many new outbreaking Pokemon. And we're talking all of them are alphas in hordes, and I am excited for that because my team is, let me say, stacked. So bring it on, Pokemon. Bring it on. Which will roll into my announcement later.
Ooh, well, you know what? Let's dive into that. I mean, let's transition to what are you up to Wednesday? And why don't you just roll right into whatever announcement you have?
Okay, so guys, I hit roll credits on Legends of Arceus. I beat that game, and there's still a lot of Pokemon that I want to catch, and I'm going to play it till it's absolutely dead. And that's why this update is exciting to me, because now I can keep going and have a bunch of new missions, which is great. But my team is stacked. Let me tell you, Goodra, don't sleep on Goodra. Goodra is a dope dragon, and you better have them on your team. So that's my first announcement. Really happy with that game. If you haven't played it, play it. It's a good game. It keeps you captivated through and through. And like I said, it makes me want to continue playing even after roll credits. So play that, absolutely. The other thing is Nerdbomber and I have watched a show called Trying. And the premise is about a couple trying to have a child, and they're not able to, so they look into adoption. And it really shines a light on adoption. And I hope if anyone out there is looking to start a family, to consider that option. It's a great option. It's giving kids who need a home, and it puts a positive light on it. So I'm absolutely thrilled with the show. It's funny, it's heartfelt. Season 1 was a little slow, but season 2 is just absolutely grabs you and makes you feel for these characters, makes you want to keep watching.
There you go. I love Rafe's Ball. That's like my thing, because it is him, right? I think it's him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's him.
He's the bomb. He's really good in The Big Short, and he was in an episode of Black Mirror that was really good as well. I think people are sleeping on him, so I'm glad to see him, getting his due. So good for him. This is on Amazon Prime, you said?
I didn't say what it was on.
No, this is Apple TV Plus. And
crap.
There's going to be a season 3. I think they wrapped filming on it.
Well, shucks. I got rid of my Apple TV Plus. I'm sure I'll be getting it back at some point when Ted Lasso comes back. But for right now,
If you pick it up for like a month, this is something like we binged this in a week. They're half-hour episodes, and each season only has 8 episodes, so you can definitely get it through in a month.
Yeah, it sounds fairly lightweight. Cool. Tactic, anything else to add, or am I going to swing it over to your lovely lady, Nerdbomber?
You can swing it over to my lovely lady, Nerdbomber.
Let's swing it over to your lovely lady, Nerdbomber.
I'm just thinking of like My Humps by Fergie, my lovely lady lumps.
So yeah, she's not going to tell you what she did this Wednesday. She's going to sing the Black Eyed Peas. Starting now, go.
The hit jam. Was that the Black Eyed Peas, or I think that was just Fergie?
That might have been a Fergie standalone.
Yeah, that was just solo career situation. But what have you been up to this week, Nerdbomber?
So I finished playing Guardians of the Galaxy, and I played a small little game called The Forgotten City. And this is a game, it can take between 5 to 8 hours to complete. It took me like 6. And the premise of this was actually super interesting. And this is on Game Pass too, for anyone interested. It's a cheaper game too, if you're going to buy it. But essentially, you are sent back in time, like you have an accident and you're sent back in time into these ancient ruins, and there's no escape. But you've basically been summoned by the leader of this little community in ancient Roman times who wants you to help solve their problem. And you're from the future. He knows you're from the future. He's summoned you back, and you're kind of in this time loop scenario where you can constantly loop the same day and use that ability to learn more information and kind of play detective and figure out the problem. And what the problem is, which is super interesting, is it's called the Golden Rule. And the gods, the Roman gods who are overseeing this little community, have instituted this rule where if one person in the community sins, the entire community is turned to gold. And then basically wiped clean slate, and new people are somehow found in this community. And there's no escape from it. So the leader, the magistrate, wants you to kind of figure out who's about to break the golden rule, because essentially with you having been summoned there, he knows that somebody did break the golden rule to kick off this time loop. And you have to solve the mystery, save everybody, and then basically create a continuum issue so that you get sent back to the future. And there's really not a lot of combat. There's some like small optional pieces. Like there's 4 different endings. So depending on what you investigate and find out, it can be played multiple different ways. But you're basically just walking around, talking to people, finding out new information, and playing investigator and detective. And like I said, there's a few kind of semi-clunky combat things that you can completely skip over if it's not your cup of tea or you're not pursuing a certain path. I had the option to skip them. I played them. They were actually really creepy and I thought impactful, and so probably shouldn't be missed, but you don't have to play it that way. And overall, like, I was very pleasantly surprised by this game. I don't want to say too much because it's obviously very contingent on not knowing a whole lot going in. I think there's a lot to be said about unraveling the mystery for yourself and discovering new things and discovering how you have to proceed forward. Like, you don't even have to time loop at all if you don't want to, but like any sin, whether it's lying, stealing, hitting somebody, doing literally anything, will constitute the time loop or will institute the time loop. So it can really vary depending on how you approach the gameplay, who you talk to, what kind of threads you pull at to kind of unravel the mystery of this place. And I highly recommend it. It's a really short little experience. It's not super complex, but the dialogue is really cool. The mystery is cool. And it was written by a 3-person dev team, which I also think is super awesome. Whenever games have super small indie dev teams and put out a really polished game like The Forgotten City, I am super impressed. So
did you mention, I was looking stuff up while you were talking, did you mention that it started as a mod of Skyrim?
It did. It started as a mod of Skyrim, and the developers of that mod, because it was so well received and well liked, they decided to,
That's fascinating.
Basically turn it into an ancient Rome setting story and make it standalone. So,
and also it's produced with support from Film Victoria. And if you don't know Film Victoria, the only reason I know Film Victoria is because they've won Oscars, I think.
The
pretty cool.
storytelling in this game is super impressive, and I don't want to recommend it too much because then you'll never give it a shot. But if you have like a break between
That's true.
games or you want something quick, like I got 2 endings because I went back, I ended it one way and was unsatisfied. And there is like a canon ending that the developers have said like there's one quote unquote good ending, and then the other 3 are like divergent endings. So obviously, I wanted the good ending.
You wanted the good one.
Yeah. So I went back, and I think my total playtime was only like 6 hours, but it was really good.
Well, and again, that's like we were talking before. I think for me, like between 8 and 12 is probably the sweet spot, but anything less than 8 is also like it's just really pleasant. So yeah, you might have me here.
Look at me go. And then
Did you play it on Switch, or did you play, because it's available on everything?
I played it on Xbox just because it was on Game Pass, but it is available on
right, you
everything.
mentioned that.
And it does go on sale, I think, pretty frequently because I've eyed it up before on Switch. When Techtic was playing on the PlayStation, when he was going through Spider-Man and Deathloop, I'd eyed it up, but then decided to just wait until I could play it on Xbox.
Yeah, the Switch is where it intrigues me. $29.99 in stock, but it's digital games are always in stock. I was just reading the Google result.
I would say, especially with your penchant for enjoying mysteries and even like historical context, like it's very well done. It's very well researched in terms of like historical lore. It's a fun little game. I like it a lot. And then I played that while I was waiting for Horizon Forbidden West. I was on the fence. I wasn't going to do it, but I got caught up in the hype. And so
Twitter told you to do it.
They did. They told me.
Yeah.
So I bought it. I got it a couple days ago, and I'm a few hours in, enjoying it so far. In the early stages, it's more of the same, I've heard, until you get out into the Forbidden West. The like early stages are reintroducing you to your weapons and stuff, so it's a little bit more of the same from the original game, but I loved the original Horizon, so I'm having a blast so far, and I can't wait to dig in more.
Right on. Well, on my end, a couple things to update on. So I mentioned last week that I had finished construction of a Lego Millennium Falcon and that I was hoping to get a hold of some more Star Wars Lego. I did go back to my parents' house and raided the basement and found, I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be upwards of 20 sets, all in some form of like, they're all some level of constructed already, but they're all like, some of them are in pieces. They're in varying states of completion. So I'm actually currently undergoing like a restoration project to actually deconstruct, like make sure they're all fully constructed by adding pieces to that need to be added, and then deconstructing them and separately bagging them, because before it was kind of just all thrown into one box. It was not a good system. So you have to be very meticulous when you're doing that. I've found that I'm missing a good number of pieces, of course. I'm going to try and find a way to source certain pieces that I don't have. But right now I'm in the process of just kind of like putting things together. It's really kind of puzzly, actually. I have all the instruction manuals, but you have to kind of really dig through a big buckets of pieces to find things that are missing from a ship or something. So it's going to be a lengthy process, but it's one that I'm really enjoying so far. I think the end result's going to be awesome. When I have a place to display all of these, I'm going to have a pretty large gallery of kind of, at this point, retro Star Wars Lego, because most of this was like early 2000s, maybe even late 90s in some cases.
Isn't that awesome that we can do that?
It's the best. My most recent construction that I'm 99.9% done with, I'm looking for like 2 more pieces, is Anakin Skywalker's pod racer from episode 1. So having an absolute blast with that. It's taken up a lot of my time, but it's time well spent. I'm really enjoying that. So I've been doing that. The other 2 things I want to shout out, I started watching Archive 81, 2 episodes in. This is kind of a psychological thriller-y show on Netflix. Definitely has horror elements. Basically, an archivist is hired to restore videotapes that were damaged in a fire in an apartment building, and he starts watching the tapes and kind of learns about some sinister mystery involving some supernatural stuff. I don't want to spoil anything, so that's as far as I'll go. And I also don't know much more than that right now. I'm only 2 episodes in, but really enjoying that. I think it's 8 episodes total, so it might be done with that by the time we record next week, and I'll be able to give a more substantive update on it. But then the third thing, I have started reading, it's called The Origin of Evil, and it's actually an Ellery Queen novel. Have you guys ever heard of Ellery Queen?
No, do tell.
So Ellery Queen is actually the author of the book, but also the main character. It's a pseudonym that the authors, because there's actually 2 men who authored these books, they use that pseudonym, and the character in the book is actually a mystery writer who helps to solve mysteries. So it's kind of this like interesting meta twist on it.
Oh,
These
neat.
books were all written these are written in like the 40s and 50s, I believe. So they're very like film noir style, like watching the Maltese Falcon or something, like just old school PI stuff. And it was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I love a good mystery. Another kind of touch point, think Agatha Christie. It's very similar to like Hercule Poirot, although those were back in the 1800s. So the time period is different, but it's really, really fun having an absolute ball with that. And I have 2 of them right now. I borrowed 2 of them, and they're both going to be pretty short reads. So again, hopefully provide more of an update as I go through them, but there's like 30 of them. So if I like them, I could read a bunch. I think they're going to be great summer reads and great beach reads. So that's been the scoop for me on the week, which I think moves us into Quiztown. And the mayor of Quiztown this week is Nerdbomber. What do you have for us this week?
I have Mr. 007 himself, Daniel Craig. First of all, this episode is coming out on Daniel Craig's birthday. So happy birthday to Daniel Craig.
HBD.
So
Nice.
This is, again, going to be Price is Right style. Whoever is closest to the numerical answer without going over is going to get the point. I have 5 questions and a tiebreaker if needed, and we'll have Illeagle go first. As always, you can only do the +1 trick 1 time per game. Also, the 1 quantity trick 1 time per game. So use your chances wisely. Here we go. Daniel Craig has had a long career, and his film debut was in the drama The Power of One. In what year did that movie release?
Been in the game for a minute. I'll tell you that much. This is somewhere in the 90s. I'm going to say 1996.
Techtic, what say you?
It's a little bit earlier than that. It was actually 1986.
You guys were both wrong, but Techtic got this point. That movie, The Power of One, released theatrically in 1992.
Garbage.
You were close.
I call foul. I was right there. Okay, fair enough. I accept the outcome. Let's continue.
So, sticking in, figuring out years of things, Daniel Craig became the 6th actor to be cast as James Bond. In what year did his first James Bond movie release? And this one, Techtic, you'll start this off. He's doing math on a calculator.
What year What
year was his first James Bond movie released?
That was in 2003.
Okay, that's too early. I'm almost positive it's either 2006 or 2008, so I'm going to say 2006.
You hit that right on the nose. His first James Bond film, Casino Royale, was released internationally in November 2006. So this game...
I remember going to see this movie. So that for me, that was...
I knew
like
it was a few years
point.
after I did, but I didn't want to bust. So I was only off by 3 years, so...
Yeah, you both were really close. So after filming Casino Royale had wrapped, and before the production of Quantum of Solace, which was in 2008, began, he actually had his body insured. For how much money was that insurance policy?
Quantum of Solace, by the way, is a very, very not good James Bond movie. A cool mill.
Oh, it was more than
$1
that.
million.
It was more than
$1 million.
that. I'm going to say $2 million.
I think that counts as your +1.
No, it doesn't. It's $1 million away.
Okay, I guess.
It doesn't have to count as the +1. That's fine.
But you did get that right. He had his body insured for $9.5 million.
Peon's life insurance are like $1 million. Come on.
Okay, so it was a +1 then because you got it right. I'm just kidding. but that is garbage. That's garbage.
What was the number?
plan on
I
winning.
actually blacked out when you said it.
9.5 million. So Techtic has 2 points. Illeagle has 1 point. We have 2 questions left. This is still anybody's game.
I mean, you got to figure $1 million per arm, $1 million per leg, so that's $4 million.
And obviously his head, maybe for each ab.
$1 million for his head, $1 million for his, down there. So what are we up to now? What is that? 6? And then I guess maybe like $500,000 for each ab.
You got to include the butt cheeks, though.
Would get you to 9, and then another $500,000
per cheek
for the booty cheeks. That gets you to 9.5. There you go. We cracked it.
Crack the case. So how many award nominations in total has Daniel Craig racked up throughout his career?
So all movies, not just
his
the
entire
Bond.
career. How many award nominations?
This was 17.
I'm gonna go 1 because I think it's less than you think. I'm gonna go 1.
Techtic takes this one home. He has
Sugar.
been nominated for 54 different awards.
Okay, he's not that good. I'm sorry, but he's not that good.
Well, there's a lot of different award shows, though.
Yeah, she
I
didn't say
suppose.
specifically this one.
So,
Okay, so Techtic's on a victory lap now, but let's finish this out.
yeah, this question is meaningless, but it's still fun, interesting trivia. So let's go. So obviously, he is best known for his leading actor roles based on credits in the leading role in 13 films. What is the total worldwide aggregate box office for those 13 films?
Well over $1 billion. I'm gonna say $2.3 billion.
So for 13 films, each film is worth one body insurance policy. So I'm just going to throw it away and say $123.5 million.
Yeah, who cares at this point?
So, Illeagle, you actually did get this and you were very close. He was at $3.7 billion in worldwide aggregate box office income in movies where he was a leading actor.
James Bond's a big deal, guys.
I wanted to plus
Yeah,
one you
that's
just to
takeaway.
bury you, but I felt like just doing some body math because it's more fun.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, look, I mean, here we are. I moved to 3-3. Nerdbomber is at 2-3. Techtic is at 3-3. So Techtic and I currently tied for the lead. And next week I will try not to lose to Nerdbomber. And we'll see what happens. But it's a different year, guys. The times they are changing, as Bob Dylan has often said. Or I guess he said the one time when he wrote that song. So with that in mind, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for listening. You can head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there if you like. You can hit us up on Twitter at our handles we mentioned. And you can get out there and have a great week. And I'll let Techtic take you out with a tech tip.
Yeah, get out there and have a great week. I just felt like imitating you.
You stole me. Yeah, get out there, have a great week. Simple tip this week. Adios.